on this episode of the Data Nerd Podcast.
But it's not the end of the world. Like every person I talk to that's ever been laid off, they always say, "Oh, it opened the door to something even better."
I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment wherever you listen. And for all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, head over to the datanerdpodcast.com. On this episode, I'm joined by Shachar Meir, data advisor and ex-Meta employee. I think what really resonated with me as I was mentioning with you was that your LinkedIn post, and you used to work for Meta, and this was what, how many weeks ago, where there were layoffs, and you posted about um, I thought it was a very human-centered post. Like it was about humans, right? It wasn't about employees. And I think you wanted to connect with people and maybe share your story and what you've learned because you worked for big tech, right? And maybe let's start there. Like what was your story there, and how can that help others who may be going through a similar experience, whether that's at Meta or any big tech company or any corporation or business they work for that where they may be having layoffs or looking for new jobs.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Super excited to be here. Um, my story is I started my career in data over 20 years ago, and I've been in small companies and big companies. I've been in startups and scale-ups as well as big tech companies such as PayPal and Meta. PayPal and Meta together I've been for over 10 years. So I've spent quite a lot of time in big tech. And I mean, layoffs, unfortunately, is something that we're seeing a lot more of in the recent years. It's just become something that is, much more prevalent. And I think that it's I've been seeing a lot of ex metamates, ex colleagues who were laid off after 7, 8, 10, 15 years working for the same company. When I left Meta, I was there for 6.5 years, and I know how big of a it's a big part of your identity and who you are. When people ask me what do you do? I work for Meta or I work for PayPal. It's just, you
Mm,
don't have to explain anything anymore. Like people immediately understand or think they understand what that means and connect with you. So it just made I think that leaving a company, regardless of leaving a company like that after so many years, regardless of whether you've left on your own terms or whether you've been laid off, leaves a big hole. And I left Meta 3 years ago. I started my consulting journey and freelancing journey, and I've been working for myself since then.
mm.
And I remember the moment that I was out of the system. I had no meetings on my calendar for the first time in over 20 years,
How did that
sitting in
feel?
front of my computer. It was scary, man. It was horrendous. I was sitting there in front of my computer. I knew I was going to be a freelancer. I'd already decided that. I
Yeah.
didn't actually know what is it that I'm going to do, but I just sat there in front of my computer and I'm like, oh shit, now what? Like what do I do? And I
Yeah.
had to figure it out. And for good and bad, these big companies, the big corporations, they create a big, like they create structure for you, right? For your life.
Yes.
They tell you when do you work, how do you work, who do you work with, what are your roles and responsibilities, and then you live and you leave the company and you're out in the void on your own devices. And there are some very human stories of people who leave big companies and well, there are stories of people who get laid off and they were in the process of IVF, for example, and now they don't have a medical insurance, and it pretty much means that they have to stop the treatments. Or I've
Yeah.
heard people's stories of people who are on a working visa sponsored by a company, not just Meta, right? Like you hear these stories all the time, and they're literally, if they don't find another job, they need to leave the country they're in, and things like that. And these are like heartbreaking stories, right?
Yeah, you're right. There's everyone has a story, right? And I've gone through it myself. The first job that I worked for, it was up in Canada, right? And I was there for 6 years. And my mindset at that time, it was a big company, and I enjoyed working for them. And I was always a proponent of that company. And in my mindset, I was thinking I'm going to retire here. This is where I'm going to stay. I'm going to move up the ladder. I'm going to, make my career here. And my identity was tied so much to that company. And the recession happened and layoffs, and it hit hard. I was like, it was a reality check for me, but also it felt like a lost part of my identity. And to your point, I said, now what? And I was and that time I was from a personal standpoint, I was a time in my life where I was going through a lot of other hardships, and adding this to that was not easy. And in that moment, it was not a good feeling. But now I think back to it. It was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because that opened my eyes to realize that it's not about attaching your identity to the company. You have to do what's best for you, because the company can tomorrow let you go, and they won't really care, right? So why I'm not saying you shouldn't care for the company you work for. Obviously, like, you have to put your effort in, but there's more to it than that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people confuse having passion for the job and for what they do, which I think everybody should have, because honestly, if you're not passionate about what you do and you just wake up in the morning, just working and you're almost like dead from the inside, you should be reevaluating. You only get one shot in life, right? You have to make the best out of it. So I mean, I think that passion for the job is a good thing, but then um, sometimes people get too hooked on one company or one employer and that sort of stuff. And uh, this is actually part of the narrative that we've been sort of taught for the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years, as for as long as
Yeah.
I can remember myself, in the job market, where your company is your family and we're one big family and we care about each other and all of that.
Yeah.
And I actually think that in the past few years, actually since COVID, something in the contract between employers and employees have changed.
What
And
do you
if you think
mean?
about
What
it,
what what has changed?
yeah, so I think that my feeling was that up until that point, it was kind of true that employers essentially promised you job safety and security. They gave you a platform where you can be successful. You had to play your part, right? You had to perform, you had to do your role, you had to do the right things. But there was sort of an understanding that your employer will look after you, and you get a lot of benefits, and you get all the they get the free food, and they get
Hmm.
employees get a lot of amenities and stuff like that, and the office and the perks and swag and things like that, especially in big tech that was notoriously known for, investing in their employees, so to speak, and spoiling their employees.
Hmm.
And you have bar in the office where you can go and have a drink, and you have three types of restaurants and whatnot. And these things these days are kind of gone, right? I mean, COVID has changed the contract to some extent, where all of a sudden people didn't want to come to the office every day. They don't want to be locked into one location. A lot of people wanted to move away from the big and expensive city, move in the countryside, live in a farm or whatever, and be away and work remotely. More people are asking for it. And the employers said, yeah, you can absolutely do that. But then, they've sort of flipped on that and changed their mind. And now they're saying, no, you can't. It's, come back to the office.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hybrid, sometimes it's full time. The other thing is the job safety and security, where it was kind of the agreement was kind of that if you're doing well, then your employer is going to look after you. but now I see top performing employees getting laid off because the companies are just laying off because that's what they do right now. So and then more people on top of that, they lost trust and faith in their employers. So a lot of people have side hustles and they do other things on the side just in case, that's their sort of insurance policy. And some of them become successful enough so they can say, hey, actually, if I invest 100% of my time in my side hustle, that can be my income. I don't need my employer. A lot of people also leave corporate life and go freelancing more than I've seen before because they don't want to be dependent on one employer. So the contract is changing.
Yeah, you're right. When I was in school, the mindset for almost everyone was you graduate and you work for a company, and everyone aimed for big tech, as if that's the gold standard. Is it? Do you think that's what people should aim for? Because I know you talk about freelancing, doing your own thing, but I don't know if everyone is made out to do that. Some people do need that structure. Some people do need that safety and security of working for a company and just being good at their job and doing what they're good at. But should that be your goal, that I need to work for a certain company and once I get there, then I've achieved success?
Um, no, I think that first of all, freelancing is not for everyone.
Hmm.
100%. I mean, it requires skills that some people just don't have, and it requires a certain amount of resilience that not everyone has. Like, since I've become a freelancer, I've faced so much rejection, not because I'm a bad person or anything like that, just because you go to a client and you talk to them about a project, but then they realize they don't actually have the budget, or now there's an organizational change that has nothing to do with you. They have a new CFO, and the new CFO is blocking all external projects and all of that, or the company is going through some restructuring. So the amount of rejection that I've received in the past 3 years has been astonishing. Like, I've never had anything like that in my career. I think it made me stronger, but a lot of people don't handle rejection like that very, very
Hmm.
well. A lot of people don't handle the uncertainty very well, and the ambiguity, and the fact that you can literally do anything and that's your job. And, so what do you actually do? And some people need the structure, as you said, and they need the roles and responsibilities, and they need to know where they go to the office and who do they work with. So I think that, first of all, companies are still a good construct. I think that big tech is good in a lot of ways still, even despite what's happening right now. And I think that, I hope that it's a period that will, um, will go off and will change. I think that a lot of that is driven by macroeconomics more than anything else. And when the macroeconomics will get better, then these things hopefully should get better. Big tech can offer you a lot. Like, you can work on problems and things that actually matter to humanity. I mean, working at Meta on products that are used by billions of people every day,
Yeah.
that's literally part of their life. I mean, it's been an amazing experience that no other company can offer you. If you work at Google, and you work on things like Google Maps or YouTube and products like that, that again, billions of people use them every day, it changes your life. It changes everybody's lives, and it's the impact you can achieve in big tech is amazing. I remember Jeff Bezos talking in an interview about Amazon cutting down the plastic covers in supply chain. Like, there are a lot of products that if you go in the shop and you buy them, like a small memory card, for example, it will be wrapped in a plastic package that big. And they
Hmm.
got rid of that. They created smaller cardboard packages, and they managed to cut down on something to the effect of 500,000 tons of plastic every year. I mean, it's astonishing impact you can never have anywhere else. Um, you work with great people, you work on interesting problems. Technology can be interesting, but at the same time, I mean, it's your role can be more limited. And it requires skills that not everybody has, like communication skills, alignment, being visible in the organization. There are a lot of skills that will make it or break it for you in big tech that are less needed in smaller companies, and people don't realize that as well. If you
Yeah.
work in a startup of 10 people, then communication is not the most critical skills. It's important, but there are other more important things. If you work in big tech and you do the best job ever, but you're not a very good communicator, you're going to struggle.
So you're saying that especially in big tech, communication skills are more important.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication, organizational skills, being able to understand the organization, understand processes, navigate the organization, navigate people and people dynamics. I mean, the more people you have, the more people dynamics you have that you need to navigate, right? That's how
Yeah.
it works.
I would argue though, I think it's important anywhere you work.
It is.
Be
Absolutely.
because I think the misconception people have in technical roles is that you just need to be good technically. But I think what separates ex- great people or great workers from the average workers is their ability to communicate,
Absolutely.
create relationships. Um, So I'll give you an example. Like I work in data visualization, right? And part of my job is to create dashboards that tell a story from a visual standpoint. I can build that dashboard and give it to you, and it'll tell a story. But that's not the full story. I need to communicate what those insights are and tell you that story so that you know what the context is, you know what to look for, you know what the action items are. um, that skill set and that human skill set of it's still a very human skill set, right? When we're in the day and age of AI, where maybe AI can do some of the technical skills now, but I think that human skill set is still something that will last and will still be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And communication is critical, it's crucial, especially for people in data. I mean, that's literally what we do, we communicate. But my point is that you can get away with not being the best communicator in a smaller company than in a bigger company, because the more people you have around you, the more you need to communicate, the more you need to align, the more you need to understand the dynamics and the politics and who does what and who is actually the decision maker, and you need to be able to represent yourself in a room and represent your ideas and sell them. And there are a lot of skills that um, always matter, but in big tech it just, and in bigger companies it just gets amplified.
Yeah, that's true. So talk to
And
me about, your experience since leaving Meta and how your identity has changed, right? You're like, were you attached did you attach your identity to who you worked for? And is that normal? Do most people do that? Is that healthy? Is that something people should do? Or should they kind of s set some boundaries or create another identity, not associating themselves with the company that they work for?
I think that's a good question. And the question is, what is identity and what is the purpose that it actually serves, right? Because
Yeah,
if you work for Meta or Google or PayPal or whatever, and people ask you, what do you do? And you say, I work for PayPal, it's an easy answer, right? People know what PayPal is. If people ask you, who are you, and you say I live in London, it's easy. People know what London is. So people use different components of their life to describe their identity. But I think that what people don't understand is or confuse is the line between identity and personal brand, right? And I think that when I left Meta, first of all, yes, I did use Meta a lot to describe myself, because that was literally where I was investing, 8 hours, 10 hours a day, every day for 6.5 years. So, it makes sense to say I work for Meta. I'm a director at Meta because that's what I was at the time,
yeah,
right? But it doesn't necessarily explain who I am and what I do. When I left Meta, I had to figure out, first of all, who am I and what is it that I do? What do I stand for? how do I communicate that with the world, right? Because when you work in a company, your title communicates a lot of who you are and what you do, right? You say, I'm data science director, or I'm a data engineering manager, or whatever. Like these things kind of tell people who you are. Now I'm in a world where I can be anything and I can do anything. So I spent a lot of time in the beginning, but not just in the beginning, also now, like it's a journey that you go through of understanding who you are and what you stand for, and how you share that with the world. And in my, being a freelancer, it's important to build a brand and get recognized and be known by people. So understanding who are these people, what do I need them to know about me, and how do I communicate that through posts, through podcasts, through, going to speaking events, through, doing these kind of engagements. But the point is, you need to promote yourself, and to promote yourself,
Yeah,
you need to understand what are you.
that's a key point. You need to promote yourself. And I think that promotion should start even before you get laid off or you need a job. You
Yeah,
need to have your network and your connections so that not for the purposes of, oh, I don't know when I need a job. Like you just never know when you may need to leverage your network. Um, that's one of the reasons I do these podcasts. It's not, and I'm not looking for work. I'm happy where I work, right? I'm not looking to leave, and that's not my plan. But I enjoy talking to guests, and I enjoy connecting with people, and I enjoy engaging with people in my network, especially on LinkedIn. Um, so would you say for people who have gotten laid off and are now looking for work, and if they're not the type of person who is made out to do freelancing and they have not built their network, what do they do? Like, how did they start? Like, what's the game? What's the game plan?
yeah. First of all, it's a great point. And first of all, I will say that, we use the word self-promotion. I want to clarify something, because a lot of people
Hmm.
tend to think of self-promotion as a bad thing, especially
Yeah, there's a
people who are
negative connotation to that sometimes, right?
yeah, and especially people who are introverts by nature, and they feel, it doesn't
Hmm.
come to them naturally. They might say, oh, this person's just promoting themselves, and they're so busy with promoting the themselves and talking about themselves, and it has a bad reputation, so to speak. So I think we need to break out of that a little bit, and out of this mindset, and I think that there's nothing wrong with helping others understand who you are and what you stand for, as long as you are something, you stand for something. And ideally, these things are good things that help, our society, and
Wh- What you just said resonated with me because I am an introvert. When I tell people I'm an introvert, if people who have not known me prior to me doing a podcast, they have a hard time understanding how an introvert can have a podcast or a YouTube channel and start teaching or giving speeches and whatnot. It wasn't easy. It's something I had to overcome. But also I realized it's not as hard as you think.
no,
It's not. I think it's the fear of what other people think that prevents you from trying it. And if you get once that fear is gone from your head, it makes it a lot easier.
yeah. And actually, there will be people, there are people out there who think, oh, Nisar is just self-promoting himself, having this podcast and all of that. But and there will be people thinking that, and I mean, it's okay. There's nothing we can do about that. But there will also be people listening to this podcast right now that this conversation will change their life, or will give them an insight they hadn't thought of, or will help them find their next job, or will help them learn something that they wouldn't be able to learn otherwise. And I think, in the
Mhm.
end, you do it for them. You don't do it for the critics.
100% right. The best feeling is when I get a message from somebody and saying, I listened to your podcast and I love it and they resonate with the content. And that in itself makes it worthwhile. I don't care how many views I get, how many listeners. It's even if I'm helping one person, it's a good feeling. It, you
Yeah,
know,
and
It's that's why you do it.
And you're a data person, right? So you know that sometimes we choose metrics that are easy for
Yes.
us to measure. And measuring views is easy on YouTube. They just tell you how many views. They don't tell you how many people you've impacted their lives, how many people you've helped them,
I wish there was a
elevate their
way.
career.
I
Yeah,
wish there was a way to measure that.
that's the most important thing. So to back to your question,
Yeah.
I think that knowing what you stand for, who you are, what you do is one thing. What do you want in life? Networking is the most critical skill for every professional, and I think in life as well. Like I cannot tell you how many opportunities I've achieved in life, not necessarily because of talent, just because I had access to the right people, because I knew the right people. And sometimes you need to meet the right people before they become the right people, so to speak. Like, I have friends that I'd met 15, 20 years ago that are now CEOs of very big companies. They weren't the CEO of a big company 20 years ago when we become friends, but now they are. And the fact that I have access to them and that we're friends and that sort of stuff is life changing for me, right?
Yeah.
So building your network is a crucial asset. I also spoke about it in the video you mentioned. I spoke about it in a
Yeah.
recent
S-
conference.
Yeah. So for people who don't know about the video, let's provide some context. What was that video about? What did you talk about?
I was in a conference in the Data Science Festival, and my talk was about how to build a long-lasting career at the age of AI, yeah, long-lasting data career in the age of AI, or something to that effect. But basically, what I wanted to explain is what I think is happening right now in our industry, because our industry is in some sort of a crisis. So why is it happening? What is changing? What is not changing? And what is important? And I think that, I mean, listen to the whole conversation if you haven't, because it's the whole talk, because it's a
Hmm.
long one, but basically I go back in history to times where there was a big change, and I try to show, okay, this is what has changed, this is what happened to the people who were doing it before. That's number one, and I try to say, okay, so based on history and what we know today, is this is what's likely to change, and this is what the future might look like. The video is called, I think on YouTube, it's called "Why Most Data Professionals Prepare for the Wrong Future" or something like that.
So
Um,
can you give us a spoiler here on what your conclusion was in that on that
yeah.
video?
So I think that data professionals will still be needed. More than that, I think that data professionals right now face the biggest opportunity of their lifetime.
With
Data is
AI?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because AI makes it a lot easier to build things, to ask questions, to do work, but it equally makes it even easier to do the wrong things, to build the wrong things, to ask the wrong questions, to do the wrong work. I
Yes.
and I think that the role of data professionals is to create clarity. That's what we do. We look at data, we look at metrics, we know how to ask questions, how to frame things, how to create clarity in a situation where there's a lot of ambiguity. And I think that going forward, these are the people that will matter the most. The people who know what needs to be done and that they have a vision and they have clarity in their mind. But I also said the bad news is that it requires some changes. Some skills now matter more than they ever did, like communication skills, framing, structuring, structural thinking, and all of that. Also, some other things matter, like your network, right? The people you have access to, your personal brand, who you are, and what you're known for, and what you do. And while other skills that people have spent years building, like technical skills, they still matter.
Hmm.
I think they matter, but they matter slightly less, right? Because AI is sort of leveling the playing field in a way that you as someone with 15, 20 years of experience and a university
The
graduate have
the
access.
gap has narrowed.
Yeah, the gap has narrowed, but you can create a gap somewhere else, right? With your network. I also have
Yep.
another video where I talk explicitly about like my networking philosophy and how to network effectively. And basically what I say there is that there is someone right now who
Hmm.
wants to give you a $1 million project. You just don't know them. They exist. They need you. They need what you do. They need your services, or $1 million job for what it's worth, right? You just don't know them, and the way to find them, and
Yeah.
you don't know them because they're not in your first degree circle of the people you know, but they might be
Mm.
in second, third, fourth degree. And the way to do it is to traverse your network, is to meet people and to go in person and to build relationships. And not just with data people. Like some of the biggest opportunities in my life, I got not through, people in my network who were data professionals, but, my hairdressers has another client and this other client knows somebody else.
Yes. Yes.
One of the
It's
dads.
it's difficult. It's difficult for many people. And I'm telling you this from my own personal experience because as I mentioned, I'm an introvert. And so introverts and here's the other thing. Being an introvert is not a negative thing.
No.
It's not. It's who you are. You own it. And there are benefits in being an introvert. So I'm not saying this as a negative. I'm just telling you the reality of how introverts act. And when they go to networking events in person, it's hard to strike conversations. It's like how do you do it? Like you're in this room with so many people, see people talking, and you just don't know who to go to, what to say, how to how to start. It's difficult. Even for me now, it is. Like
Yeah.
I do have a network. I do engage with people, but I find here's what works for me. I'm not good in large group settings. I'm better in smaller one-on-one conversations. So that's what I try to focus on is connecting one-on-one with people.
Yeah, which is what we're doing right now.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I think being an introvert doesn't mean that you cannot be successful in networking. It means that networking may not be very comfortable for you. I think that's what people don't realize. And the fact that something's not comfortable doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing this. I think that there are a lot of other things that are not very comfortable for me. I enjoy being in conferences. I enjoy seeing people. I enjoy meeting people for the first time. By the way, I didn't always enjoy that. I think that if and being a introvert extrovert is not a Boolean thing, right? It's a spectrum, right? And I think that
Yeah.
when I was younger, I was probably more introverted. I didn't enjoy talking to people. I didn't have a lot of friends, that sort of stuff. Like I didn't really like social interactions. I didn't enjoy it. But over time, I learned how to do that, and I developed techniques. And I think that I've become more extroverted than I was in my earlier days, right? I've learned how to do that. Um, and I think that overcoming this discomfort,
Mm.
and there are techniques you can use, right? You can have a set of questions that you just like almost like a script that you ask every new person you meet, and you can find ways. And I think that one of the things I talk about on my networking video is that sometimes you need to reframe how you think about networking, because sometimes people think about networking as an opportunistic thing, right? Like how can I get something from that person?
Yeah.
Whereas I like to think about it where I like to think about what can I give that person? And sometimes,
That's right. That's how you should think about it. Because what incentive does that person have to talk to you?
yeah, and I want to give more than I receive, right? That's how I live my life. So I want to, when I talk to a person, I'm like, okay, I need to find out what can I give that person. Sometimes it can just be a compliment, right? I like your new shoes, or oh, this is a nice car, or whatever. Sometimes it can be, making a connection, or giving them an advice, or sharing something with them, or giving them something you have. But I think that starting networking from the point of giving is is a much better position. I think that more people will be open to doing that than going out and looking for people that you can take something away from.
Yeah. You know what makes it easy? Okay, so for me, uh, this podcast serves as a good vehicle for networking because like I reached out to you. You didn't know who I was. Why did you accept this engagement, this podcast engagement?
Um, I don't know. First of all, I looked at your podcast. Like when you reached out, I looked at the podcast and I thought, oh, that's cool. Like it looks like a legit podcast. So
Yeah.
why secondly, I enjoy being on podcasts. Like I literally enjoy going on a podcast and talking to a stranger, and just,
Hmm.
you know, and thirdly, because I think that it's a way of giving at scale. I mean, if anything we said here in this conversation is going to be helpful to someone, then I would feel good about that. Even if I don't know who that person is or how it helped them, I feel that I've done something good. So
Exactly. So if I didn't have this podcast and if I didn't engage you and say, would you like to be on my podcast? And if I was just cold messaging you and saying, let's just have a coffee chat and let's talk, I think it would be a harder sell because then it becomes about me and what I can get from you. Whereas the way I engaged with you was offering you something, a podcast, you can talk and, see what I'm about. And that made it easier for me to to have you come on and have you part of my network now.
yeah. And just inviting a random person for coffee, I mean, people treat that as giving, but it's actually taking
You're
because you're
taking their
taking
time.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I,
And
I yeah,
I have a lot of people reaching out, offering coffee chats and all of that. And if I had unlimited time, I would be happy to meet all of them. But I don't. Like I need to prioritize, right? I have a lot of things going on in my life. I have my job. I have my family. I have a lot of things. So I mean, sometimes even giving 30 minutes to a stranger is as much as I would like to do that, is not. It's not a very easy thing for me to do. It
yeah,
comes
you're
at the
right.
cost of something else.
Time is money.
Yeah, it's not. I don't look at it as money, but I look at it as I just don't have that time. I don't have that luxury. At the same time, if you engaged with my posts, for example, and we were exchanging messages before, and you're like, "Hey, Shahar, I would love to chat." That's changing the framing a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not 30 minutes coffee with a stranger. It's 30 minutes coffee with Nisar, who's been engaging with me for a while, and I feel like we already have some sort of connection.
I
Um,
love that point. That is exactly when I teach my classes and generally the people who take my classes are working professionals who are trying to make a career transition change into data analytics. That's what I tell them is don't cold message people who've never heard of you. Engage with their content. Put your name out there so that they have familiarity with you. And then when you message them, they're like, "Oh, I know Nisar. He's been commenting," and the chances of you then being able to engage with them and talk will be much higher.
absolutely. That's
Yeah,
golden advice right there.
yeah, that's it. So let me go back to your point on um that YouTube uh, uh, episode that you had about data professionals are preparing for the wrong future. Okay.
Yeah,
So you talked about um, how our roles will change now,
yeah,
right? So if you're somebody who's been used to doing technical work, now do you have to now learn how to do your job differently? Is that something that's like if you're not doing that, does that eventually mean that there's a higher probability that it may hinder your career?
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, people treat that as a new thing, but it's not. I mean, 20 years ago, it was Oracle DBA, right? And we had to build table spaces and allocate storage and partition the data and build indexes and do a lot of database maintenance and decide the block size for every table and every table space and every partition. And we had to do a lot of things. Today, you have data engineers who never even thought, like, heard of these concepts, right? So the way we do our work changes all the time. It
Yeah.
changes, right? What is happening right now with AI might be a little bit extreme, right? It changes at a much faster pace, maybe too fast to comfort for many people,
Mm.
but it's not something that we've never had before. And I think, sorry, one of the examples I also give in this talk is in the 50s, if you wanted to tell a computer what to do, you needed to know exactly what CPU you're running on, what architecture. You had to write code in assembly language that's literally moving bits in memory from this address to this address and then making CPU interruptions. Then came, and in the 70s came higher order languages like C, right? If we can call C a higher order language, where
Yeah.
it kind of abstracted that level of complexity, and you could write code that basically compiles to the specific CPU and architecture that you're using. And then we had even higher order languages like C++ and Java that were object oriented, which is presumably closer to the way humans view the world, where there are objects and you can interact with them. And then came even higher order languages like Python, where, in a one liner with a few libraries and that sort of stuff, you can just build an entire platform. And I think that with AI, it's just another next step on that evolution, right? So instead of now even having to write code in machine language, you just tell it what is the outcome, you describe in your own words the outcome that you want, and it will translate that to machine code. Of course, I'm a little bit simplifying here, but the point is that if you actually look at that trajectory, this is what's been happening for the past 60, 70 years anyway. And that very last step is actually, it's not a linear progression, it's an exponential
Yeah.
progression that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's going to change. But I think the fear that a lot of people have is that they're going to lose their jobs because what they're doing now can be replaced with AI. Maybe it's not there yet, but AI is only going to get better, right? And so the example I like to use, right, and I'm going to go back to building dashboards, okay? Some people say that AI can create dashboards for you. Why do we need a dashboard developer? There's a lot of things that go into developing a dashboard than just asking a prompt to get a dashboard. You have to understand the data. You need to know the context. You need to define requirements. You need to understand the stakeholders and what they need, right? So the analogy I like to give, and you could probably resonate with this as a pilot. Okay, let's suppose in a when you're uh, behind or in a helicopter or on a plane, you have a dashboard there. That dashboard is created for you because it's things that are important for you to look at, and you use that as a guide. Let's
Yeah.
suppose that dashboard did not exist, was not created for you based on the requirements you need to fly that plane, and it was just a open-ended blank screen with a prompt. What do you want? Will you know what to ask for if you don't know how to fly a plane? And will you get the same thing that you would get from a dashboard? Do you think that's a good analogy on like for people who fear losing their job, that that your expertise still matter and you still need to know what you're doing, and not just anybody can do your job.
It's funny that you say that. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
I literally had a LinkedIn post
Hmm.
that had this image.
Okay. So for people who aren't on the YouTube video and are listening to audio, what are you showing?
So basically, it's two images, and at the top, I say perception of dashboards 2024, and you see a cockpit
Yeah.
with the two screens, the two flight displays, and then 2025, and you see a ChatGPT like prompt where you ask questions like, "Where am I? Where am I going? Is my aircraft going to crash?" And I think that people don't understand. Let me just stop the sharing.
Yes.
People, I think, use the word dashboard to describe things that for me are not a dashboard. Like, not every random collection of widgets is a dashboard, right? I mean, it technically is, but I think that for me, dashboard is a very well thought interface that is designed for a specific persona to give them the information they need in a consistent way and in the way that they need to consume it. So somebody has spent a lot of time, somebody smart spent a lot of time thinking about who is the person I'm building for, what do they need, how do they need the information, what are they going to do with it. And if you think of pilots, in a small airplane like that, what do you need to know? You need to know three things. You need to know where are you right now, you need to know where you're going, and you need to know that your aircraft is doing well and like everything is running smoothly, right? And this is
Mm,
literally what you have in front of you. So where you are, you have a map, right? That's the most efficient way of showing where you are. You might be interested of seeing like what other airplanes are around you in the airspace and understanding the airspace around you and all of that. So it's a very specialized map, but it is still a map, and you see yourself on that map. then where you're going. So you have your current altitude, heading, speed, and you also see the trajectories. Are you climbing? Are you descending? Are you speeding up or down? Are you, are you turning left or right? So you see the trajectories, and then the engine instruments. You can see different temperatures and you have different sensors in different parts of the aircraft. But to simplify that, because we don't want pilots to have to remember every single component and what is the acceptable range, it's basically, it's basically condensed into red, yellow, green. And as long as you're in the green zone, you're fine. And if all the instruments are in the green, then you're good.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody spent a lot of time thinking about what is the most optimal design. Now, what you're saying is right. Like looking at a blank screen where, you just have to ask questions. You're right. People may not know what to ask, but the other failure mode is every time you ask the question, like the thing that you're looking for is in a different place, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I always need to see my altitude, but if my view changes all the time, if every time I ask the question, I get an answer that looks different, it's not predictable anymore. It's not consistent. And there's a lot of cognitive load in searching for the number. Whereas because the dashboards I have right now in my plane are very consistent, I don't need to think about it. I look at this and within, I don't know, milliseconds, I already know what is happening.
You're right. If I got into my car and my dashboard changed every time, I would have trouble. Like, I'd have to learn how to drive the car each time.
Yeah, you would probably have a car crash because you will be too busy looking for the
Exactly.
information that you need to operate the car.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
ludicrous.
Yeah. That's a good point. Though, listen, a lot of great points here. Okay. But let me ask one last question, and I'm going to tie it back to the start of our conversation. Right. So imagine you're somebody who just got laid off, um, and you're scared, questioning the future. What advice would you give to them today? What should they do?
Yeah, first of all, if you've been laid off, then there's nothing easy about that. I think it's hard, and I think that take time to to recollect yourself. But at the same time, I will say, and it's easy to say when you've not been laid off right now, but it's
Mm,
not the end of the world. Like every person I talk to that's ever been laid off, they always say, "Oh, it opened the door to something even better." So every time a door closes, another one opens, and I think that it's keep the optimistic outlook because and you have to believe that it's going to be better because it will. 100% for I honestly believed in that. Secondly, decide what is it that you want to do and don't just decide based on, okay, I want to work for this company, I want to work for that company. When I left Meta, I left because, and I talked about it again in one of my YouTube videos of why I left Meta, but I got to a point in life that I was working for a company that was paying me a lot of money, but I never had time. I didn't have enough time with my family. I didn't have time for my hobbies. I didn't have time for anything. I didn't have the right balance in my life. So my goal when I left Meta was to try and go back to my Meta salary in 3 working days a week. So
mm,
I can maintain this kind of flexibility. I can still live my life and enjoy my life right now, but at the same time, not have to worry about the future. That's the goal that I have in mind. And I ask myself, okay, how can I achieve that goal? I don't know people who are looking for part-time employees, and meta salaries and all that. And I thought, okay, the only way I can do that is probably by freelancing, and I need to figure that out. But that was my goal. Secondly, understand how much runway you've got in front of you because, some people have savings and can afford not to work for, for 3 months, for 6 months, for 1 year, for 2 years. So sometimes starting something completely new and completely different takes time and takes runway and financial runway. Um, so understand what you're dealing with and how much time you've got. In my case, I decided to give myself 1 year. I thought, okay, if I don't make money for 1 year, I'm still gonna be fine. So I want to give myself a fair chance of starting something completely different and seeing how that works for me. And I'll try freelancing for a year and see how it works. And if it doesn't, I can always go back to full-time employment, but I'm giving myself this 1 year as a gift, right? Um, I think know what is it that you want to do for yourself, what kind of life you want to have. Do you want to work remotely? Do you want to work in an office? Do you want to work in a big company, in a small company? Talk to people. Third thing, network, go in person. I think that AI and LinkedIn have ruined the recruiting industry right now with the one click apply button.
Yeah,
Every time I talk to recruiter friends and hiring managers, every time they open a new job, they get 1,000 applicants within, an hour. It's just insane. And of course, they're not going to remove a review of 1,000 applicants, right? And also people use AI to craft CVs that are very specific for specific jobs. So they match the job description with their CV to kind of show that it
yeah,
matches. And people do crazy things. Don't play that game. You don't want to be playing that game because that's a losing game, right? Being one of 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever is a very slim chance of even getting interviewed, right? Instead of that, go in person, go talk to people, go to conferences, go to meetups, engage with people on LinkedIn, with hiring managers, with recruiters, find the companies you want to work for. You want to work for, I don't know, CVS, go find who on LinkedIn, who are the relevant people, see who is active on LinkedIn, start engaging with their posts, ask them for coffee. Um, Third, if you're not able to find a data job, especially in case of graduates, sometimes I tell people find any job. It can be in operations, it can be in customer support or whatever. Be in the company, be in the system, show them that you have the data skills. So do some analysis, do some reporting, do something useful to show them that you know how to do it, build relationships with the data team and come in as an insider.
yeah,
Sometimes it's easier than coming from the outside.
yeah.
Uh,
And I would add to that, even if it's an unpaid engagement, like you may reach out to, part of a community that whether it be community or religious organization or anything like that.
yeah,
Ask them if there's
charity.
anything that you can help them with, and that it can be used to your advantage. It's some experience. You could use that project and showcase what you've done, and you never know what that may lead to.
Yeah, and I gave that example on that talk as well. I mean, we keep going back to that talk, but I gave this example. I said too many people, especially graduates, they try to show that they try to build knowledge and experience. So they go and they do Kaggle competitions and they go and predict who's drowned in the Titanic and this kind of stuff. So please stop doing that. I mean, for me as a hiring manager, that's not impressive. We know who's
Yeah,
drowned in the Titanic. We have the answer for that. We don't need to keep predicting that.
yeah,
Go, as you said, go find a charity, find a friend or a family that has a business, solve a real problem for them with data. And, that will give you a case study or something interesting. You can talk about it in the interviews. And for me, it will be a much more impressive as a hiring manager or as an
yeah.
interviewer than another Kaggle competition or whatever.
Because at the end of the day, if you'll see that this person is able to solve problems, and if you can do that, that's what will sell your skill.
100%.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, okay, so we've talked about your YouTube channel. How can people, maybe do you have a website? Maybe you want to give your YouTube channel, maybe LinkedIn. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I post every day. I've been posting every day for the last 3 years. So I try to share some knowledge and insights, connect on LinkedIn, follow on YouTube, subscribe, check out my videos. I'm trying to share a lot of free content there as well. I have my website, shaharmeir.com. So just check it out where I talk about what I do and how I work. And finally, if people are interested, I've got my career unblocking mini course, which is entirely free. I've been growing people and coaching and mentoring people for the past 20 years, and I've identified 4 or 5 things that basically block data professionals in their careers over and over and over again, like understanding the business, who are you building for, working with leadership, etc. So I've designed a small free online course where I share this knowledge. It's free for now. I might do something with it later, but
Yeah,
you can sign up. It's email based. You get 5 videos and exercises and resources to do that. And these are proven things. I mean, I've used that with my teams over the past 20 years and I've grown people from interns all the way to senior executives. So please, do
great.
yourself a favor, take it.
So they can just search your name on Shachar Meir on YouTube, LinkedIn, or go to your website, right?
Yeah,
I'll,
that's
I'll
it.
put all the links up on in the show notes for this podcast as well. But listen,
Appreciate it.
th- this has been great, a great conversation. Hopefully, as you mentioned before, as long as one person has benefited from the advice you've given, it's worthwhile, right? So, um,
100%.
that's the aim, that's the goal here.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the conversation.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a rating or review. It really helps more data nerds discover the show. You can find all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, and more at thedatanerdpodcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and embrace your inner data nerd.